integrals. According to the Laplacian paradigm for classical physics, we can determine the future evolution of an object if we know its current position and its velocity, as well as those same quantities for all of the other relevant objects that might be affecting it. Then we can figure out what forces are acting on the object. And from Newton's second law, 2.1, we can find its acceleration. With all that in hand, we like to actually figure out the object's trajectory. If velocity is the rate of change of position and acceleration is the rate of change of velocity, we would like to add up all those accumulated change to determine how the position and velocity evolve over time. Let's go back to a car moving in a straight line at constant velocity. But instead of plotting position as a function of time, let's pretend we don't know that and plot velocity as a function of time. That's pretty easy when the velocity is constant. When something moves at constant velocity v, the distance it travels x, it's just that velocity times the time it spent moving, or x equal v times delta t. There is a nice geometrical way of thinking about this in terms of the above plot. The distance traveled is just the area of the rectangle stretching horizontally from 0 to delta t and vertically from 0 to v. We can think of the accumulated amount of some quantity as the area under the curve defined by its function. We would like to be able to generalize this to the case when the velocity is not constant. When we were developing the idea of a derivative, the trick was to zoom in on a curve so that it looked like a straight line. We can use analogous reasoning here. The area under a curvy function ft can be approximated by picking some small increment delta t, calculating the area under the rectangle from t equals 0 to t equal delta t, which is just v0 times delta t. Then doing the same for the curve from t equal delta t to t equal 2 times delta t, and so on. At the end, we add up all the area of these skinny rectangles, and we get a quantity that is approximately equal to the area under the curve. The procedure of adding a lot of quantities together is represented by a summation sign, which is written as sigma, the capital Greek letter sigma. Area under Vt approximately equal to sigma index rectangles Vt delta t. The wavy equal sign is a way of writing approximately equal to. As our time interval delta t gets smaller and smaller and our rectangles get skinnier and skinnier, but also more numerous, this procedure comes closer and closer to the true area under the curve. We therefore, just as in the case of derivatives, take the limit as delta t gets infinitesimally small and call it dt. We also replace the summation sign sigma with a new symbol that looks like an artistically deformed s. The result is the integral of the velocity with respect to time, which gives us the accumulated distance traveled. Delta xt equals limit sigma vt delta t equals integral vt dt. Similarly, the amount by which the velocity change can be calculated as the integral of the acceleration. Delta vt equal integral of at dt. We are hiding some information here to keep our notation clean. What we've calculated is the change in the position or velocity between some initial time and some final time. A more careful notation would indicate what those two times actually were. See Appendix A for details. Just like derivatives can be thought as a way of making sense of 0 divided by 0, an integral can be thought of as a way of making sense of infinity times 0, where infinity is the number of skinny rectangles under the curve and 0 is the area of each rectangle. It can all be made fairly rigorous. Mathematicians refer to the subject as simply analysis, but you can see why Newton was hesitant to rely on calculus in the Principia. The ideas were very new at the time, and even today some folks working in the foundation of mathematics are skeptical that calculus is entirely rigorous. Happily, it works more than well enough for physics purposes. If we have Newton's laws and we know the forces acting on the object, we don't have to integrate anything to get the acceleration. It's given directly from F equals ma. We can integrate acceleration to get velocity, and we can integrate velocity to get position. So we see the promise of the Laplacian paradigm fulfilled. Given an initial position and velocity, we are able to construct the entire trajectory of the object. We can think of differentiation and integration as operators on functions, maps from functions to other functions. You give me one function, I can create another one by taking its derivative, or yet another one by taking its integral. In fact, they are inverse operation of each other. The derivative undoes the integral and vice versa. Or derivative from integral fx will equal to fx, and integral of derivative of fx will equal fx. Or in symbol, d dx of integral fx dx equal fx, or integral of df dx equal fx. As a matter of practice, calculating derivative of function is pretty easy, but taking their integrals can be quite difficult. Even the best physicists will often resort to using a computer to find a numerical solution when they need to know the value of a particular integral. We won't worry too much about doing derivatives and integral, taking some specified function and calculating the derivative or integral of it. Some examples are given in Appendix A, but mostly we are interested in the underlying concepts rather than explicit calculation. We will use one simple result. The integral of the infinitesimal interval itself equals a finite interval, or integral dx equal delta x. This equation simply says the total amount of x we accumulate is the change in x from the start to the end of the process. The variable x here can stand for anything at all: distance in space, duration in time, whatever physical quantity we care about at the moment.